This is Yusuf on my channel, and it's a lot of smoke, so I'll just put this up. I'm going to talk about the father of Jesus. By the way, these two, may God save Serbia and Syria, and please pray for the Christians in Egypt. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, there were writers saying that Jesus, the virgin birth, didn't take place. It was an act of fornication or adultery, however you want to look at it. That there was a guy named Panthera or Panthera or Pandera, spelled many different ways. Usually it's Panthera, or it's usually Panthera, but they also use Panthera. And this was being argued by a virulent anti-Christian who mocked Christianity. Celsus, I believe, was the one that did it. This winds up showing up in Jewish literature too. They probably got it from Celsus. Was it Celsus? It was a Greek that was writing against it, and people had pointed out that Panthera and Pantheos, I think it is, or Parthenos, it means virgin. It was like a play on words. So it was, the virgin impregnated Mary, or something like that, or like but I think it's for virgin female. And in some spellings it's close. And in like the 1860s, they dig up a tombstone in Germany with the name on it, and the dates given, and that he was stationed in, I believe it was Phoenicia or Sidon, and gives the years, which would have been about the same time. But there's some problems with this. It was a common name, just like them finding ossuaries of people named Jesus and Joseph and Mary, and it's kind of falls apart. There's people who try to link the two together. Initially, the virgin birth, I figured, no, Jesus was the son of Joseph. It says as much in the Gospels constantly. It doesn't call. It's not like the Quran. It just calls him the son of Joseph. Isn't this the son of Joseph? With his brothers and sisters, and his brothers and sisters seem to doubt him and think that he's crazy. Even his mom, they're trying to get him to come back home. He says, who are my mother, my brothers, and my sisters? It's those who believe, and this and that, and it goes on. Joseph may have been dead, the father of Jesus, by the time he became 30, because remember, they were workers. You're a worker, basically stonemason. This wasn't Egypt. It wasn't an easier life. I mean, the Egyptians had a relatively easy life. The Israelites, being under occupation, had a harder life, harder climate. So he would have probably been in his tradition even subscribes to him being older than Mary, of already having children. So the likelihood of him being dead by the time of Jesus' ministry is very high. So I figured that the virgin birth stories are just, it's the beginning of It's the beginning of Mary worship, that Mary worship got into the church very early. Again, this is when I was not all that educated in Christianity, and I was just younger, and I thought, okay, it's not in the two like original Gospels, John and Mark, and again, this is the view long ago, because Matthew and Luke are just built off of Mark. They're second, third, they just add stuff. The two originals are John and Mark, and they say nothing about a virgin birth. In fact, Jesus seems to start everything starts at the baptism, John the Baptist. And I figured, Mary worship started then, and then, by the time Christianity became legalized, all the pagan priests just became bishops, and they just chiseled off the names of the statues of the different gods and put on the names of saints, and they just kind of worked it out from there, and it kept trying to mesh Christianity in with this thing, and Christianity wound up becoming dominant and taking over and more radicalized, and then everything fell into the Dark Ages, so they clung to Christianity because that's what they had, and they had, lost basically the beginnings. Nobody knew where it came from, and you have these isolated books, and basically people forgot, and they had to bring people back in from Ireland to, re-educate Rome. That actually did happen. And this was the time when I thought the only difference between the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholic is the Eastern Orthodox get married. And I didn't realize there were any ancient sees except Rome. So, yeah, Jesus, son of Joseph, great guy, the last prophet. I never claimed to be the Messiah, I never claimed to be God. Didn't die for sins or anything, just died as a martyr for his beliefs, and that he was showing people the way, and that he was the good example for mankind. And the resurrection, I don't know, maybe his spirit rose or something, or the body disappeared, and it was just his spirit walking around, and and that the Gospels, they have truth in them, but, I could only trust Mark and the Sermon on the Mount. That was it. It was the Book of Mark and the Sermon on the Mount. John was just the absolute was just, really screwy. And Luke was just a paid writer and whatever, and Paul has the best account, but then Paul was kind of a fanatic. These were the beliefs that I held. Then I heard about the Panthera thing, and I got interested. This is very interesting. It doesn't hold a lot of water. I know James Tabor makes a big deal about it, but the Panthera thing, it's very, and many people, I've seen people jump on this. They'll dismiss all the church fathers, they'll dismiss the gospel accounts, everything, but Panthera, see that there's a name, a tombstone in Germany, and this guy lived during the time that that Jesus would have been conceived, and there was an anti-Christian hundreds of years after the fact writing about Panthera, and there it is, boom. It's not that easy. Scholars don't really take this seriously because there's no nobody mentions it except the one writer. This would have been a claim easily used against the Christians by a lot of people. It made its way into Judaism because Judaism became more reactionary against Christianity. It kept getting pissed, writing stuff like that, and there were pogroms and to persecute the Jews because they were writing this stuff, and they get even more pissed and write the stuff. And even the stuff that comes from the Jews is very late. I think Panthera even shows up in the Todet Yeshu, which is from like the 11th century or something. But that would, I mean, most scholars think it's the play on words. Let me actually see if I can get anything on Panthera and see what. Sorry, I make videos without researching them. I go off of what I know, of what I've read. That's why sometimes I'll mix up names. Sometimes I'll say Irenaeus of Antioch or Ignatius of Lyon, or mixing up. Oh, the tombstone says Tiberius Iulius Abdes Pantera from Sidon, age 62, served 40 years, former standard bearer of the first cohort of archers, lies here. Oh, it is Celsus. It says the real name was Panthera. Oh, excuse me, I said 100. It's 2nd century that Celsus was writing. And it was him arguing with Origen. Oh, this is interesting. It says Marcus J. Borg and John Dominic Carson. These are not defenders of traditional Christianity. They don't like the virgin birth. They're against the resurrection. State that given the antagonism of Celsus towards Christianity, his suggestion of a Roman parentage of Jesus might be deriven from the memory of military Roman operations suppressing the revolt of Sepphoris near Nazareth. Oh my gosh, I mentioned that in just the other video that I made. Around the time of Jesus' birth, the common legionary name Panthera could have arisen from satirical connection between panther and the Greek word panthenos, meaning virgin. Okay. I didn't read Wikipedia beforehand. I probably should have just read this. In the book Todet Yeshu, which dates to the Middle Ages, it's an anti-Christian satirical chronicle of Jesus and refers to the name Panthera or Pandera, and the book accuses Jesus of illegitimate birth. It also says that the Apostle Peter went. Oh, it actually goes into that. It's an anti-gospel. It manifests the claim that the Apostle Peter pretended to be a Christian so he could separate them, meaning the Christians, from the Jews, and portrays Judas Iscariot as a hero who posed as a disciple of Jesus in order to stop the Christians. Bruce Chilton and Craig A. Evans state that the Todet Yeshu consists primarily of fictitious anti-Christian stories based on the ongoing friction with the Jews, and it offers no value of historical research on Jesus. the Blackwell companion to Jesus, states that Tadashiyoshu has no historical facts as such, perhaps created as a tool for warding off conversions to Christianity. A possible connection between two Pantheras has been hypothesized by James Tabor. I should have just read this from the beginning. And hinges on the assumption that Celsus's information about Jesus' illegitimacy was correct. A soldier with this name living in the right period might be the father. Tiberius Iulius Abdes Panthera's career would place him in Judea, present-day Israel, as a young man around the time of Jesus' conception. Tabor has hypothesized that is the connection. Morris Casey rejects Tabor's hypothesis on multiple grounds and states that Tabor has presented no evidence regarding the equality of the two. James Whitehead and Michael Burns state the chances of Tiberius Iulius Abdes Pantera is the same soldier as suggested by Celsus seems infinitesimal. So that's about Panthera. Probably should have just read Wikipedia. Yeah, it's nothing of it. It's very funny when people bring this up. It's like, wait, you claim that the virgin birth is just borrowed from these other things. Like this wouldn't have been known, or and I had rejected it first because I figured Joseph was the father of Mary, and why would that doesn't make sense, because the virgin birth story is just tacked on, and people would have known, they wouldn't say, oh, God did that, Jesus isn't telling anybody he's born of a virgin. He's not, like Mary told her son, oh, you were begotten by God, and this and that. Jesus' ministry starts at 30. We have him talking in the temple when he's younger. But even where it said places him in present-day Israel, it said he's from Sidon. It doesn't say which legion he was with. And the time period, he could have been anywhere. It was, the Roman army was big. It's like, kind of like the American army. Could have been in Afghanistan, could have been in, or like the American military. Could have been in Afghanistan, could have been in Iraq. It could be patrolling the DMZ in Korea on the border between North and South. Could be on leave in Germany, could be at Fort Bragg, could be at, Annapolis. I mean, it gets very weak. You'd already have to suppose that you have to suppose too many things to make this work, and scholars just say no, that doesn't stand to historical scrutiny. Yet they do say Jesus did exist. There's vast consensus on that. Yet it's very funny, people who say Jesus didn't exist say Panthera was his father. James Tabor obviously believes that Jesus existed. And there's some things that James Tabor says that I agree with. there's some things Eisenman says that I agree with, and it doesn't mean I agree with everything they say. He's definitely not Eisenman. But yeah, Panthera, not the father of Jesus. It's either God or Joseph. I mean, we have a huge amount of writings from the early period. Why wouldn't this have been? But Celsus talks about it. And then there's those people that say, oh, well, you know, Celsus and you just borrowed from him, and Pliny and Tacitus, they just all borrowed from each other. Well, why don't they all just repeat this? I mean, Celsus hated the Christians. The funny thing about these anti-Christian writers, I believe Justin Martyr brings it up, is that they don't even, half the time they're not even spelling the name Christians right, and they call them Christians, and they know nothing about Christianity. I mean, Pliny, when he's like torturing Christians, killing women and children, he says, "Oh, it's so horrible. It's what's going on here is so horrible." The fact that, you know, it's gone from women, there's no boundaries. It's soldiers, women, slaves, children, men, intelligent people, stupid people. They're all being. This is horror. The real horror was that he's freaking torturing people. And a lot of them were martyred for their faith, and then a lot of them, instead of going through horrific torture and death, cursed Christ and worshiped the image of the emperor. And these people became known as lapsi, and they were let back into the church, and there was Duantus said, no, you can't let them back in. But yeah, the church said, no, we're going to let them back in. It's, you know, you people get all self-righteous after the persecution, but you know, yeah. All right, take it easy. That's the story about Panthera. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. Writing against it, and people had pointed out that Panthera and Pantheos, I think it is, or Parthenos, it means virgin. It was like a play on words. So it was, you know, the virgin impregnated Mary, or something like that, or like but I think it's for virgin female. And in some spellings it's close. And in like the 1860s, they dig up a tombstone in Germany with the name on it, and the dates given, and that he was stationed in, I believe it was Phoenicia or Sidon, and gives the years, which would have been about the same time. But there's some problems with this. It was a common name. Just like them finding ossuaries of people named Jesus and Joseph and Mary, and it's kind of falls apart. There's people who try to link the two together. Initially, the virgin birth, I figured, no, Jesus was the son of Joseph. It says as much in the Gospels constantly. It's not like the Quran. It just calls him the son of Joseph. Isn't this the son of Joseph? Or Pandera, spelled many different ways. Usually it's Panthera, or it's usually Panthera, but they also use Panthera. And this was being argued by a virulent anti-Christian who mocked Christianity. Celsus, I believe, was the one that did it. This winds up showing up in Jewish literature too. They probably got it from Celsus. Was it Celsus? It was a Greek that was. This is Yusuf on my channel, and that's a lot of smoke, so I'll just put this up. I'm going to talk about the father of Jesus. By the way, these two, may God save Serbia and Syria, and please pray for the Christians in Egypt. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, there were writers saying that Jesus, the virgin birth, didn't take place. It was an act of fornication or adultery, however you want to look at it. That there was a guy named Panthera or Panthera with his brothers and sisters, and his brothers and sisters seem to doubt him and think that he's crazy. Even his mom, they're trying to get him to come back home. He says, who are my mother, my brothers, and my sisters? You know, it's those who believe, and this and that, and, you know, it goes on. Joseph may have been dead, the father of Jesus, by the time he became 30, because remember, they were workers. You're a worker, basically stonemason. This wasn't Egypt. It wasn't an easier life. I mean, the Egyptians had a relatively easy life. The Israelites, being under occupation, had a harder life, harder climate. So he would probably